In 1972, Jody Loomis's ostensibly innocent bicycling excursion to see her horse at a nearby stable had a tragic outcome. The 20-year-old was discovered in the bushes, barely alive, and passed away shortly after. It would take over 50 years until her killer was found guilty. Jody Loomis resided in Snohomish County, Washington, with her family. She had a sister named Jana and was the elder child of John and Rosemary Loomis. Jody had been pursuing her nursing education and enjoyed helping others. She aspired to join her fiancé's hospital staff. Life was good for the young woman, but her happy life met a tragic end. One evening in 1972. On August the 23rd, Jody left her home to go to a stable that was about 6 miles away to see her horse. At 5:30 p.m., a couple who had taken a remote dirt path off the road about halfway to her destination found her in a life-threatening position. Jody was partially unclothed and was shot in the head with a .22 caliber weapon. Jody was rushed to the hospital, but regrettably, she had already passed away. Jody suffered gunshot wounds to her right ear. She was assaulted, according to the autopsy report. Aside from the gun used to shoot Jody, the investigators initially lacked information. The only evidence found at the scene was biological evidence taken from her body. Because there was no eyewitnesses to the murder, the investigation immediately became cold. The Snohomish County Cold Case Section did not begin looking into the case until many years after the crime, using improvements in DNA research to identify her offender. However, the authorities discovered that crucial evidence from the case had vanished over the previous few decades. The intimate swabs, the victim's underpants, and the bullet that killed Jody were all part of that. By chance, detectives discovered that Jody's left boot, which she was wearing at the time of her death, had semen on it. The crime lab created a DNA profile from it in 2008. CODIS received the profile. However, there were no matches in the database. Detectives looking into the cold case had to start over. A list of likely suspects was created using forensic genealogy almost 10 years later. In July of 2018, the DNA profile was forwarded to Parabon Nanolabs, and they utilized it to compare the findings to a public database, which revealed matches to possible suspects' family members. The Miller family was the target. Terrence Miller was identified as their suspect. Terrence, who would have been 30 at the time of the assault, was still a resident of the region. He was a former heavy equipment operator. For almost 43 years, he was married. Terrence had a criminal history. He was found guilty of obscene behavior in 1968, and in the 1970s, he abused a young girl. He was also accused of assaulting children, according to the charges. Undercover police investigators who were trailing him collected a coffee cup he dropped outside of a neighboring casino to collect his DNA. After more than 40 years, they found the solution. The semen recovered on Jody's boot matched Terrence's DNA profile. Terrence, 78, was taken into custody in April of 2019. Terrence pleaded not guilty to the charges leveled against him. At his trial, which took place in late 2020, he did not give a statement. After 2 weeks of testimony and the presentation of the evidence, the jury started deliberating. Terrence took his life on November the 9th, 2020, while out on bond. A few hours later, the jury found the defendant guilty of first-degree murder. But while they were deliberating, they were not informed of the defendant's passing. In December of 2020, the defense attempted to have the guilty verdict overturned, but the verdict was upheld. Sadly, Jody's parents did not live to see their daughter receive justice. However, her sister Jana was there through the trial. We miss Jody's love, her sisterhood, and this pain is now part of our surviving life, she said. Friends are there to help me, but they're not my sister. I hate it that someone's life was taken for such a senseless act and that he left her there to die alone. What are your thoughts?